A successful nightclub manager in Miami's elite scene meets an enigmatic VIP client who captivates him completely. What begins as professional service transforms into an intense emotional connection, but her mysterious behavior and guarded past hide a devastating secret that will challenge everything he believes about love, sacrifice, and second chances. Through 6 chapters, this story explores the depths of human connection when faced with impossible circumstances. The bass was thumping so hard through the floor of Club Elysium that I could feel it in my chest as I adjusted my tie for the 3rd time that evening. Thursday nights were always busy in South Beach, but tonight felt different. There was an electricity in the air that had nothing to do with the neon lights cutting through the Miami darkness outside our floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd been managing VIP services at Elysium for 4 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Oil heirs from Texas, tech moguls from Silicon Valley, celebrities trying to stay anonymous behind dark sunglasses. They all blended together after a while. Rich people wanting to feel special, wanting to buy experiences they couldn't get anywhere else. It was my job to make that happen, and I was damn good at it. "Marcus, we've got a last-minute reservation," called Jessica, one of our hostesses, rushing over with her tablet. "VIP Section 3, party of 2. They specifically requested you." I glanced at my watch, 11:47 p.m. Most of our high-end clients booked weeks in advance. "What's the name?" "Just says E. Morrison. Paid the premium deposit up front, cash advance for bottle service. No special requests listed." Something about last-minute bookings always made me curious. In my experience, people who showed up unannounced either had something to prove or something to hide. As I made my way through the crowd toward VIP Section 3, weaving between the bodies, moving to the rhythm, I ran through my usual mental checklist: bottle presentation, perfect temperature, clean glasses, ambient lighting adjusted just right. The VIP area was elevated above the main floor, separated by frosted glass panels that gave privacy while still allowing a view of the controlled chaos below. As I climbed the stairs, I caught a glimpse of long, dark hair and the shimmer of what looked like an expensive dress. But when I rounded the corner and saw her face, everything else disappeared. She was sitting alone at the corner table, and I swear the air changed when our eyes met. She had this way of looking at you like she could see straight through all your defenses, like she knew secrets about you that you'd forgotten yourself. Her dress was midnight blue, simple but elegant, and she wore it like armor. There was something untouchable about her, something that made every other woman in the club look ordinary by comparison. "Ms. Morrison," I managed, finding my professional voice again. "I'm Marcus, your VIP host for the evening." She smiled, and it was the kind of smile that could stop traffic. "Please call me Elena, and thank you for accommodating the last-minute request." Her voice had a slight accent I couldn't place, maybe European, possibly South American. It added to the mystery that seemed to surround her like expensive perfume. "Of course. You mentioned party of 2? My friend is running late. Work emergency." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "It's just me for now." I went through the motions of presenting our premium bottle selection, but I found myself stealing glances at her face. She listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about the vintage, the distillery, the tasting notes. Most clients just pointed at the most expensive option and moved on. "You really know your spirits," I said as she selected a bottle of 18-year-old single malt that most people had never heard of. "My father taught me to appreciate quality," she said, and for just a moment, something sad flickered across her features. "He said life's too short for bad whiskey." As I poured her first glass, she caught my wrist gently. Her touch sent electricity up my arm. "Join me for one. I hate drinking alone." Every professional instinct told me to decline. Fraternizing with clients was against club policy, and I'd built my reputation on maintaining boundaries. But something about the way she asked, not demanding, not entitled like most VIP clients, but genuinely requesting my company, made me hesitate. "I don't usually—" "I know," she said softly. "That's why I'm asking." I found myself sitting across from her, accepting a glass of whiskey that probably cost more than most people made in a week. The amber liquid burned perfectly as it went down, smooth and complex. "So, Marcus," she said, leaning forward slightly, "how does someone end up managing VIP experiences in Miami? You don't strike me as the typical club scene type." I laughed. "What gave it away? The way you actually listen when people talk, the way you notice details. Most people in service roles go through the motions, but you seem to actually care about the experience you're creating." She was right, and the fact that she'd picked up on it surprised me. I studied hospitality management at FIU, I told her. Started as a server, worked my way up. I like making people happy, I guess, even if it's just for one night. Especially for one night, she said quietly, and there was something wistful in her voice that made me want to ask what she meant. We talked for the next hour, and it felt nothing like the usual VIP small talk. She asked about my family. I told her about my sister in law school, about my parents who'd immigrated from Jamaica and built a small restaurant in Homestead. She listened like every word mattered, asked follow-up questions that showed she was really paying attention. When I asked about her, she was more guarded. She mentioned traveling for work, never staying anywhere too long. When I pressed gently about what kind of work, she just smiled and said it was complicated. "Don't you get tired of never settling down?" I asked. "Sometimes," she admitted, swirling the whiskey in her glass. "But settling down requires trust, and trust is a luxury I can't afford right now." The way she said it made my chest tighten. There was pain there, carefully hidden but unmistakable once you knew how to look for it. Around 1 a.m. she checked her phone and sighed. "My friend isn't coming." Work crisis turned into an all-nighter. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. But secretly I was glad. The thought of sharing her attention with someone else felt wrong. "Don't be. This has been..." She paused, looking at me with those deep, dark eyes. "The most real conversation I've had in months." Real. The word hit me harder than it should have. I knew exactly what she meant. "Can I ask you something?" she said, as I prepared to call for her check. "Of course. Do you believe in fate? In the idea that some people come into your life exactly when you need them?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know, maybe." "Why?" She stood up and I realized how small she looked despite her obvious strength. "Because I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. I was supposed to fly out this afternoon, but my flight got delayed. I've never been to Miami before, never been to a place like this, but something told me not to go back to my hotel." She moved closer, and I could smell her perfume, something floral but not sweet, sophisticated and mysterious like everything else about her. "I'm glad your flight was delayed," I heard myself say. She smiled again, but this time there was sadness in it. "Be careful what you wish for, Marcus." Before I could ask what she meant, she was gathering her purse, leaving cash on the table that was 3 times what the bill would have been. "Will I see you again?" I asked, following her toward the stairs. She paused at the top of the steps, looking out over the crowd that was still dancing, still lost in their own worlds. "I hope not," she said softly, "for your sake." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd like she'd never been there at all. I stood there for a long time, holding her empty glass, trying to figure out what had just happened. Jessica appeared at my elbow. "Went well, I see. She left a hell of a tip." I nodded, but I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about the way Elena had looked at me when she said goodbye, like she wanted to say something else, something important, but couldn't find the words. As I cleaned up the VIP section, I found myself hoping her flight would get delayed again. There was something about Elena Morrison that had gotten under my skin in a way no one had in years. Something that made me want to know all her secrets, to understand the sadness I'd seen flickering behind her eyes. I had no idea that some secrets are meant to stay buried, and that some people run from their past for very good reasons. 3 days later, she walked back into my life and nothing was ever the same. 3 days felt like 3 weeks. I caught myself checking the reservation system every few hours, looking for her name, E. Morrison. I'd memorized it, along with every detail of that night, the way she held her glass, the slight tilt of her head when she listened, the sadness that flickered across her face when she mentioned her father. It was Sunday night, typically our slowest evening of the week. I was reviewing inventory reports in my office when Jessica knocked on the door. "Marcus, she's back." I didn't need to ask who. My heart started pounding before I even looked up. "Same table?" She specifically requested it. "And Marcus?" Jessica paused. "She looks different tonight. Scared, maybe." I made my way through the sparse Sunday crowd, my palms actually sweating. What was wrong with me? I'd handled celebrity clients, billionaire oil barons, people whose names were household words. But the thought of seeing Elena again had me nervous like a teenager. She was sitting in the exact same spot, but Jessica was right. Something was different. Gone was the composed, mysterious woman from Thursday night. Her usually perfect posture was slightly hunched, and she kept glancing toward the exits. Her dress was black tonight, more casual, and her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger, more vulnerable. "Elena," I said her name softly as I approached. She looked up and the relief in her eyes was unmistakable. "Marcus, thank God you're working tonight. Are you okay? I sat down without asking, breaking protocol again, but something about the way she was holding herself made formalities seem ridiculous. She laughed, but it wasn't the warm, genuine sound from our first meeting. This was brittle, like glass about to shatter. Define okay. You look like you haven't slept in days. Because I haven't. She rubbed her temples. I need a drink, something strong. I poured her a double whiskey, neat. She downed it in one gulp, then gestured for another. Elena, slow down, what's going on? She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding something important. You said the other night that you believed in fate, in people coming into your life when you need them. I remember. I lied to you. Her voice was barely above a whisper. About why I was in Miami, about my work, about everything. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. Okay, want to tell me the truth? She poured herself another drink with shaking hands. The truth is that I'm in witness protection, Marcus. The truth is that 3 years ago I witnessed something I wasn't supposed to see, and now there are very dangerous people who want me dead. The words hit me like a physical blow. Witness protection, dangerous people. This wasn't some romantic mystery. This was real, potentially deadly. The truth is, she continued, her voice getting stronger, that I've been Elena Morrison for 8 months. Before that I was Sarah Chen in Portland. Before that Rebecca Santos in Denver. I don't even remember who I was before all this started. I stared at her, trying to process what she was telling me. What did you witness? My ex-fiancé. She laughed bitterly. God, that sounds so normal when you say it like that. My ex-fiancé was laundering money for some very bad people, Russian mob to be specific. I walked into his office one night to surprise him with dinner, and I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. A meeting, names, faces, bank account numbers. She took another sip, smaller this time. I tried to pretend I hadn't seen anything, tried to act normal. But Anton, that's his name, Anton Volkov, he knew. He knew I'd seen too much. So you went to the police? Eventually, after he tried to have me killed. She said it so matter-of-factly that it took a moment to sink in. Car accident that wasn't an accident. I got lucky. A truck driver saw what happened, called 911. When I woke up in the hospital, there was a federal agent sitting next to my bed. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Elena, my real name is Isabella, she said quietly. Isabella Rodriguez. I was a graphic designer in Chicago. I had a dog named Mochi, a tiny apartment with terrible plumbing that I loved and a life that made sense. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but her voice remained steady. I haven't seen my family in 3 years, Marcus. My parents think I'm dead. The marshals staged my funeral. My little sister Maria, she's getting married next month, and I can't even send her a card. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was ice cold. Why are you telling me this? Because they found me. She looked directly into my eyes. Anton's people. They found Elena Morrison. I have to disappear again. Probably tonight. My heart stopped. What do you mean they found you? There was a man in my hotel lobby this morning. Russians have a certain look, you know. Clean, expensive suits, but there's something in their eyes. I saw him talking to the desk clerk, showing him a photo. I made it out the back entrance, but I can't go back there. Jesus, Elena. Isabella, whoever you are. You need to call your handler. Get to a safe house. I tried. Her grip on my hand tightened. My phone goes straight to voicemail. Something's wrong, Marcus. Really wrong. The club suddenly felt too exposed, too public. I looked around at the sparse crowd, wondering if any of them were watching us. Listen to me, I said, making a decision that I knew would change everything. You can't stay here. It's too open. I have an apartment about 10 minutes away. You can hide there while we figure out what to do. She shook her head. I can't ask you to do that. These people, Marcus, they don't just kill the target, they kill anyone who gets in their way. You're not asking. I'm offering. I stood up, still holding her hand. I'm not letting you face this alone. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she nodded. Okay, but we need to be careful. If they're watching the hotel, they might be watching other places too. I led her through the back of the club, past the kitchen and storage areas, to the employee exit that opened onto a side alley. My car was parked in the back lot, away from the main entrance. Stay low, I whispered, as we crossed the lot. During the drive to my apartment, she told me more. How the federal marshals had become her family, her only connection to safety. How she'd learned to become someone new every few months. New name, new history, new personality. How exhausting it was to never let anyone get close. That night we met, she said, as I pulled into my parking garage. That was the first time in 3 years that I was just myself. Not playing a character, not maintaining a cover, just talking to someone like a normal person. Is that why you came back? She nodded. I knew I was being relocated again. My handler told me Friday morning. I had 2 days to close up Elena Morrison's life, and all I could think about was how I never got to say goodbye properly. My apartment was small but safe. 10th floor, good security, and most importantly, not connected to my work life. I made coffee while she stood at the window, looking out at the Miami skyline. It's beautiful, she said softly. You can stay as long as you need to. She turned to face me. You don't understand what you're getting into. These people don't give up. Ever. They've been hunting me for 3 years and they're not going to stop just because I have help. Then we make sure they don't find you. Marcus, she walked over to me, cupped my face in her hands. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. The honest answer was that I was falling in love with her, had been since that first night, but saying that felt like too much, too soon. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner, I said instead. She kissed me then, soft and desperate and full of 3 years of loneliness. When we broke apart, she was crying again. I don't want to run anymore, she whispered against my lips. I'm so tired of running. I held her close, feeling her heart beating against my chest, knowing that everything in my safe, predictable life was about to change. But as I looked into her eyes, Isabella's eyes, I knew I didn't care. Then we fight, I said. Outside, Miami slept on, unaware that somewhere in the darkness dangerous men were closing in on the woman I was already prepared to die for. If this part of the story has touched your heart, tell me from which part of the world you're listening to this. I'd love to know that this journey is reaching people everywhere, because what comes next will test everything we think we know about love and sacrifice. I woke up to the sound of Isabella's nightmares. She was curled up on my couch, the blanket I'd given her twisted around her legs, speaking rapid Spanish in her sleep. Her face was contorted with fear and she kept saying, "No, Anton, por favor, no." Isabella. I knelt beside her, gently shaking her shoulder. Hey, you're safe. You're with me. Her eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused for a moment, before she recognized me. Marcus, what time is it? 6 in the morning. You were having a nightmare. She sat up, running her hands through her hair. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. Don't apologize. How long since you've had a full night's sleep? Define full night. She attempted a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Coffee. I made us both coffee while she tried to call her handler again. Still no answer. The worry lines around her eyes deepened with each failed attempt. This isn't normal, she said, staring at her phone. Agent Martinez always answers. Always. Maybe his phone died, maybe he's in a meeting. No, her voice was sharp. You don't understand how this works. When you're protecting someone like me, you don't just go offline. Something's happened. She was pacing now, that caged animal energy I'd noticed at the club even more pronounced in the confined space of my apartment. Okay, I said, trying to think clearly. What's the protocol when you can't reach your handler? There's a backup number, but I'm only supposed to use it in extreme emergencies. Isabella, people are hunting you and your federal contact has vanished. If that's not an extreme emergency, what is? She dialed the backup number. I watched her face change as she listened to whatever was on the other end. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She repeated the automated message, her voice hollow. My blood went cold. What does that mean? It means either the entire witness protection program has been compromised or she couldn't finish the sentence. Or what? Or Agent Martinez is dead, and they're coming for me next. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I watched Isabella transform before my eyes. The vulnerable woman who'd cried in my arms last night disappeared, replaced by someone harder, more focused. I need to get out of Miami, she said, all business now. Today, maybe even within the hour. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere they won't think to look. Maybe Mexico, maybe Canada. I have some emergency cash, fake documents that Martinez gave me for situations like this. She was already moving toward the door, but I caught her arm. Wait, just wait a minute. I could feel her slipping away, see the walls going back up. You said you were tired of running. That was before my handler disappeared and my safe house got burned. So fight back. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Fight back? Marcus, these aren't schoolyard bullies. These are professional killers with unlimited resources and international connections. But you have something they don't. What's that? You have the truth. You said you saw bank account numbers, names, faces. That information is still valuable, right? Maybe even more valuable now than it was 3 years ago. I could see her thinking, processing what I was suggesting. Even if that were true, who am I supposed to give it to? The FBI might be compromised. Local police can't protect me from the Russian mob. I'm completely alone in this. You're not alone. I stepped closer to her. You have me. Marcus, you manage VIP services at a nightclub. I need federal agents, witness protection, people with guns and badges. Maybe that's exactly the problem. Maybe you need someone they'd never suspect. She was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the Miami morning traffic. Tell me about Anton, I said. Not the scary stuff, the personal stuff. What was he like before you knew what he really was? Why does that matter? Because if we're going to beat him, I need to understand how he thinks. Isabella sat down heavily on the couch. Anton was charming, incredibly charming. He had this way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world when he focused on you. He was generous, thoughtful, remembered little details about things you'd mentioned months before. Sounds like a catch. That's what made it so easy to ignore the red flags. The phone calls at strange hours, the mysterious business trips, the way he'd go cold sometimes like a switch had been flipped. Did you love him? The question surprised her. I thought I did. But looking back, I think I loved the version of myself that I was with him. He made me feel special, chosen. I was just a graphic designer from a middle-class family, and here was this sophisticated man with expensive tastes who wanted me. What changed? I started noticing things. Inconsistencies in his stories, the way he'd tense up when certain names were mentioned on the news. And then one night I decided to surprise him at his office. Her voice got quieter. The building was supposed to be empty, but there were cars in the parking garage, expensive cars. I took the elevator up to his floor, and I could hear voices through his office door. What did you see? Money, lots of it, stacks of cash on his desk, and these men in suits counting it, packaging it. But that wasn't the worst part. She paused, her hands shaking slightly. The worst part was seeing Anton's face. The man I thought I knew, the man I was going to marry, was gone. In his place was someone cold, someone who talked about human lives like they were business expenses. He was discussing a problem in Chicago, someone who was asking too many questions. He used the word eliminate like he was talking about removing a line item from a budget. Jesus. I backed away from the door, but I must have made a noise. The conversation stopped. I ran for the elevator, but it was too late. Anton opened his office door just as the elevator closed, and he saw me. That's when you knew you were in trouble. That's when I knew I was dead. She looked at me with those dark eyes that had haunted my thoughts for days. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened, made me breakfast, kissed me goodbye, told me he loved me, but I could see it in his eyes. He was deciding what to do about me. So you ran. I tried to act normal for a few days, but I was terrified. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Finally, I went to the police, but they said they needed more evidence. They said what I'd seen could be explained away as a legitimate business transaction. She stood up and walked to the window again. 2 days later, someone tried to run me off the road. If it hadn't been for that truck driver who saw what happened and called 911, I'd be buried in some unmarked grave outside Chicago. I joined her at the window, putting my arms around her from behind. But you survived. You're here, you're alive, and you're stronger than you were 3 years ago. Am I? Because I feel like I'm falling apart. You feel like that because for the first time in 3 years, you're not running on pure adrenaline and survival instinct. You're letting yourself feel things again. She leaned back against me. Is that what this is? What do you mean? This thing between us? Is it real? Or is it just me clinging to the first person who's made me feel human in years? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know, I said honestly, but I know that when I thought you were going to disappear again last night, it felt like someone was ripping my heart out. And I know that I'd rather spend one real day with you than a lifetime of safe, predictable days without you. She turned in my arms, studying my face. You have no idea what you're signing up for. Then show me. Before she could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my work number. Marcus. Jessica's voice was tight with panic. Thank God you answered. There are men here looking for you. They're asking about that woman from the other night, the VIP client. My blood turned to ice. What men? They say they're private investigators, but Marcus, they don't feel like private investigators. They feel dangerous. Isabella was already moving, grabbing her bag, her whole body tense. Did you tell them anything? I said you were off today, but I don't think they believed me. One of them is still here asking the other staff questions. The other one left about 10 minutes ago. Jessica, listen to me very carefully. Lock yourself in the office and don't come out until they're gone. And call the police if they won't leave. Marcus, what's going on? I'll explain later. Just stay safe. I hung up and turned to Isabella, who was already at the door. They found us, she said simply. How? Credit card from the other night? Security cameras? Maybe they followed you home from work. Does it matter? She was right. It didn't matter how they'd found us. What mattered was that we had maybe 10 minutes before they figured out where I lived. The parking garage, I said. They'll check that first. We need to get to your car. I don't have a car. I've been taking cabs everywhere since I got to Miami. Then we take mine and get as far away from here as possible. As we headed for the door, she grabbed my hand. Marcus, this is your last chance to walk away. Once we leave here together, there's no going back. Your life as you know it is over. I looked into her eyes. Isabella's eyes, the eyes of a woman who'd been running for 3 years, who'd lost everything and everyone she'd ever loved. My life started 3 nights ago when you walked into it, I said. We ran. The elevator ride to the parking garage felt like an eternity. Isabella stood pressed against the back wall, her eyes fixed on the floor numbers, counting down. I could see her mind racing, calculating, planning. When the doors open, she whispered, stay behind me. If something goes wrong, run back upstairs and call 911. I'm not leaving you. Marcus, I'm not leaving you. The elevator dinged softly as we reached the garage level. The doors slid open to reveal my Honda Civic, sitting alone under the fluorescent lights. Everything looked normal, but Isabella grabbed my arm. Wait, she breathed. That's when I saw it too. A black sedan parked in the visitor section, engine running, windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. It hadn't been there when we'd arrived last night. Back up slowly, Isabella said. Hit the button for the lobby. But before I could move, a man stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. He was exactly as Isabella had described. Expensive suit, clean-shaven, with eyes that looked like they'd seen too much death. In his hand was something that made my blood freeze. A gun. Isabella Rodriguez, he said in accented English. You've led us quite a chase. Isabella stepped in front of me, her whole body coiled like a spring. Dimitri, I should have known Anton would send his favorite psychopath. The man, Dimitri, smiled, but it was the kind of smile that promised pain. Anton sends his regards. He wants you to know that he never stopped loving you. Funny way of showing it. Love makes us do terrible things sometimes. You should understand that better than anyone. His eyes flicked to me. After all, look what you've done to this poor man. Dragged him into our little family drama. Let him go, Isabella said. Your business is with me. Oh, but that's where you're wrong. Dimitri took a step closer, and I could see other men emerging from the shadows around the garage. We were surrounded. Our business was with you 3 years ago. Now our business is with anyone who has helped you, hidden you, loved you. The word loved came out like a curse. You see, Isabella, Anton realized something after you disappeared. He realized that the only way to truly control someone is to make them understand that everyone they care about will die because of their choices. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. Dimitri gestured with his gun. Answer it. Put it on speaker. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone. The message was from a number I didn't recognize, but when I opened it, my heart stopped. It was a photo of my sister Carmen walking across the FIU campus. She was laughing with friends, completely unaware that someone was following her close enough to take the picture. No, I whispered. Oh yes, Dimitri said. Carmen Martinez, law student, works part-time at the campus library, drives a blue Honda Accord with license plate. He rattled off details about my sister's life like he was reading from a file. She's quite beautiful. Anton has always appreciated beautiful women. You son of a bitch. I started toward him, but Isabella caught my arm. That's the plan, isn't it? She said, her voice deadly calm. You kill me, but first, you make me watch while you destroy everyone I care about. Smart girl, that's exactly the plan. Isabella was quiet for a moment, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. There's just one problem with your plan, Dimitri. What's that? You always were too stupid to see the big picture. Before I could blink, Isabella was moving. She grabbed a heavy flashlight from the emergency kit, mounted on the wall, and hurled it at the overhead fluorescent lights. The garage plunged into semi-darkness, lit only by the exit signs and the headlights of the black sedan. Run! She screamed. Chaos erupted. Shouts in Russian, the sound of running feet, car doors slamming. I heard Dimitri cursing, but I couldn't see anything in the darkness. Isabella grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the stairwell, but before we could reach it, the garage filled with the sound of screeching tires. The black sedan was accelerating toward us, using its headlights to track our movement. This way! Isabella yanked me behind a concrete pillar just as the car roared past. How many of them are there? I gasped. Too many. She was breathing hard, but her voice was steady. We need to get to the street level, but not through the lobby. They'll have someone waiting there. The emergency exit on the 3rd floor? Yes. But we need a distraction first. She pulled something from her purse, a small device that looked like a garage door opener. What is that? Insurance policy. Martinez gave it to me before I came to Miami. She pressed the button, and immediately every car alarm in the garage started wailing. The noise was deafening, disorienting, perfect cover. We ran for the stairwell as the Russians shouted over the cacophony of alarms. I could hear Dmitri screaming orders, but the echoing garage made it impossible to tell where the voices were coming from. We made it to the third-floor emergency exit, but when Isabella tried to push the door open, it wouldn't budge. "It's chained shut," she said, panic creeping into her voice for the first time. Behind us, we could hear footsteps on the stairs. They were coming. "The roof," I said. "The building has roof access through the maintenance room." We climbed, taking the stairs 2 at a time. My lungs burned, but I could hear Isabella's breathing staying steady. 3 years of running had kept her in better shape than my comfortable club manager lifestyle had kept me. The maintenance door was unlocked, thank God. We burst through onto the roof just as the Miami sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "Now what?" I asked. Isabella was already surveying our options. "Fire escape on the north side. It leads to an alley that connects to the main street." We could hear voices behind us now getting closer. "Isabella!" Dimitri's voice carried across the rooftop. "There's nowhere left to run." "He's right," she said quietly. "Even if we get down, they'll be waiting. They have my photo, they probably have yours by now. We can't hide anymore." I looked at her standing there against the Miami skyline, her hair whipping in the wind, and I realized something that should have terrified me but somehow didn't. "I don't want to hide anymore," I said. "What?" "I said I don't want to hide, I want to fight back. Marcus, these men will kill us." "Maybe, but what's the alternative? Run for the rest of our lives? Let them murder my sister? Let them win?" She stared at me for a long moment. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we give them what they want." "My death?" "No, a meeting with Anton." Before she could respond, the maintenance door burst open. Dmitri appeared, flanked by 2 other men, all armed. "Enough running, Isabella," he called out. "You're only making this harder on everyone." "You want to talk to Anton?" Isabella called back. "Set up a meeting." Dmitri laughed. "You think you're in a position to make demands?" "I think I'm in possession of information that's worth a lot more alive than dead," she replied. "Bank account numbers, transfer records, names and faces of everyone I saw in that office 3 years ago. Information that could put Anton away for life." "Anton doesn't believe you still have that information." "Then Anton is stupider than I thought." Isabella pulled a small USB drive from around her neck, where it had been hidden beneath her shirt. "Everything's on here. Names, dates, financial records. I've been carrying it for 3 years, waiting for the right moment." I stared at her. In all our conversations, she'd never mentioned having actual evidence. "You want this?" She held up the drive. "Tell Anton I'll trade it for my life and the life of everyone I care about. 1 meeting, neutral ground, and we end this." Dmitri spoke rapidly into a phone in Russian. After a few minutes, he looked back at us. "Anton says you have 1 hour to get to the port of Miami. Warehouse 47. You come alone or everyone you've ever spoken to dies. I'll be there." "Isabella, no," I whispered. "It's a trap." "Of course it's a trap." She squeezed my hand. "But it's also our only chance." As we made our way down the fire escape, leaving Dmitri and his men on the roof, I realized that everything had changed. This wasn't about running anymore. This was about ending it, one way or another. "Where are you watching this story from?" Isabella asked quietly as we reached the alley. "Because what happens next will determine if love really can conquer the darkness that some people carry with them." The warehouse district of Miami stretched before us like a concrete jungle, and somewhere in that maze, Anton Volkov was waiting. Warehouse 47 stood like a monument to decay in the Miami Port District. The building was massive, its corrugated metal sides streaked with rust and years of salt air. As we approached in the stolen taxi, we'd commandeered 6 blocks away, I could see the silhouettes of men positioned around the perimeter. "This is insane," I said for the 10th time in the past hour. "Probably." Isabella's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as she checked the small recorder we'd bought at an electronics store. "But it's the only play we have left." We'd spent the last hour preparing for what might be our final conversation. The plan was simple in theory, terrifying in practice. Get Anton to confess to everything on tape, then broadcast it live to the FBI field office, the Miami Herald, and every news station in South Florida simultaneously. "You still have time to walk away," she said, as the taxi dropped us off 2 blocks from the warehouse. "Find your sister, get her somewhere safe, and forget you ever met me." I turned to face her under a flickering streetlight. "Isabella Rodriguez, in the 3 days I've known you, you've turned my entire world upside down. You've made me feel more alive than I have in years, and you've also probably gotten me marked for death by the Russian mob." That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. "I'm not finished." I took her hands in mine. "You've also shown me what it means to be brave, really brave. Not the fake courage of managing drunk celebrities or handling club emergencies, but the kind of bravery that means sacrificing everything for what's right." "Marcus, I love you," I said. "I know it's crazy. I know it's too soon, and I know we might both be dead in an hour, but I needed you to know that." She kissed me then, hard and desperate, like she was trying to memorize the taste of my lips. "I love you too," she whispered. "That's why this has to end tonight. I won't let you live your life looking over your shoulder because of me." We walked the final 2 blocks in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. The closer we got to the warehouse, the more surreal everything became. 4 days ago, my biggest concern was whether we had enough premium vodka for the weekend. Now I was walking into what would likely be my last conversation. The main entrance to the warehouse was guarded by 2 men who looked like they could bench press my car. They searched us thoroughly, finding the recorder immediately, of course, but that was expected. "Anton wants to see you both," one of them said in heavily accented English. "The deal was Isabella comes alone," I protested. "Plans change," the man replied, gesturing with his gun toward the entrance. The interior of the warehouse was a study in contrasts. Most of the space was exactly what you'd expect: concrete floors, industrial lighting, stacks of shipping containers. But in the center, someone had created an oasis of luxury. Persian rugs, expensive furniture, even a full bar setup. It looked like a movie set. And there, sitting behind an antique desk like some kind of criminal CEO, was Anton Volkov. I'd expected someone obviously dangerous, maybe scarred or intimidating. Instead, Anton looked like he could be running a tech startup. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of generic handsome features that would blend into any upscale crowd. The only thing that marked him as dangerous was his eyes, flat and cold, like a shark's. "Isabella," he said, standing up with a smile that didn't reach those dead eyes. "You look well. Running suits you." "Anton," her voice was ice. "You look exactly the same, still pretending to be human." He laughed, and it was the sound that gave away his true nature. There was no warmth in it, no real amusement, just calculation. "And you must be Marcus." Those shark eyes fixed on me. "The knight in shining armor. Do you know what happened to the last man who tried to save my Isabella? She's not your Isabella." "Oh, but she is. She always will be. You see, Marcus, you can change your name, your hair color, even your accent, but you can't change what you are inside, and Isabella is mine." "Is that why you've spent 3 years trying to kill her?" "Kill her?" Anton looked genuinely surprised. "Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I don't want Isabella dead. I want her back." The words hit the warehouse like a bomb. Isabella went rigid beside me. "That's impossible," she said. "Is it? Think about it, my love. If I wanted you dead, would you have survived a single day? Do you really think Agent Martinez disappeared by accident? Do you think it was coincidence that your safe houses kept getting compromised just enough to keep you moving, but never enough to actually catch you?" The color drained from Isabella's face. "You're lying." "Am I? Tell me, in 3 years of running, how many times did they actually get close enough to hurt you? How many times did you escape by just minutes, just seconds? That takes incredible timing, doesn't it? I watched Isabella's world crumble in real time. The car accident was meant to scare you, not kill you. A little theater to make sure you went to the FBI. Do you really think I couldn't afford better assassins than someone who crashes into a truck in broad daylight? But Agent Martinez said exactly what I paid him to say." Anton's smile widened. "Did you really think the federal government would spend millions of dollars protecting one witness, especially when that witness was involved with someone they suspected of money laundering?" The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they created was horrifying. "You bought him," Isabella whispered. "I bought him. I bought your safe houses. I bought your new identities. Every time you thought you were escaping, you were actually moving exactly where I wanted you to go. The only variable I couldn't control was you falling in love." Anton's gaze shifted to me. "That wasn't part of the plan. You were supposed to stay isolated, dependent only on the protection I was providing. But then you had to go and find yourself a hero. So you decided to kill me," I said. "Oh no, Marcus. I decided to recruit you." Anton walked around his desk, moving closer to us. You see, I realized something about Isabella during our time together. She needs to feel needed. She needs to feel like she's saving someone. He gestured to the warehouse around us. All of this, the chase, the danger, the narrow escapes, it was all to prepare her for this moment, the moment when she would have to choose between her freedom and your life. What are you talking about? Anton snapped his fingers, and suddenly, a large screen descended from the ceiling. On it was live video feed of my sister Carmen, tied to a chair in what looked like another warehouse. No! I lunged toward Anton, but two of his men grabbed me. Carmen is perfectly safe, Anton said calmly, as long as Isabella makes the right choice. What choice? Isabella's voice was barely audible. Come back to me. Marry me. Be the woman I fell in love with. And Marcus and his sister live happily ever after. And if I refuse, then I stop playing games. Marcus dies tonight, his sister dies tomorrow, and then I hunt you for real. No more fake escapes, no more theatrical close calls, just death. The warehouse was silent, except for the sound of Carmen crying on the video feed. I looked at Isabella and saw something break inside her. How long? She asked quietly. What? How long have I been dancing to your tune? How long have you been controlling my life? Anton considered the question. Since the night you walked into my office, the meeting you saw, the conversation about elimination, that was staged. I knew you were coming. I wanted you to see it. Why? Because I knew you'd run and I knew you'd go to the police. I needed you to become someone the government would want to protect, someone valuable. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. The real evidence of my operations has been in your possession all along. He tossed the device on the desk between them. It was identical to the USB drive Isabella had been carrying. The drive you've been wearing around your neck? It contains exactly what I wanted law enforcement to have. Small fish, minor operations, enough to make it look real but nothing that could actually hurt me. Isabella stared at the duplicate drive, understanding dawning in her eyes. But this one, Anton continued, contains everything. The real bank accounts, the real operations, the names of every government official I've bought over the past decade. It's worth about $500 million in blackmail material, and you're just going to give it to me? I'm going to give it to my wife. The choice was impossible, and we all knew it. Isabella could walk away, and Anton would kill us both and then hunt her down properly. Or she could surrender herself to a monster to save two people she cared about. Looking at her face, I already knew what she was going to choose. Isabella, no, I said, don't do this. But she was already walking toward Anton, each step taking her further away from the life we might have had together. Isabella took 3 steps toward Anton before she stopped. You know what I realized, she said, her voice carrying across the warehouse with surprising strength. In all your planning, all your manipulation, you made one crucial mistake. Anton's confident smile faltered slightly. What's that, my love? You never actually knew me at all. Before anyone could react, Isabella spun around and drove her elbow into the throat of the guard standing closest to her. As he doubled over, she grabbed his gun and rolled behind a shipping container. Isabella, Anton's calm facade cracked completely. What are you doing? What I should have done 3 years ago. She fired a shot that ricocheted off the concrete near Anton's feet. Marcus, the fire alarm. I understood instantly. The building's sprinkler system would create chaos, and more importantly, it would trigger an automatic emergency response. I broke free from my distracted captors and slammed my fist into the alarm box on the wall. Immediately, water began cascading from the ceiling as sirens wailed throughout the warehouse. Anton's carefully orchestrated meeting was descending into chaos. You think this changes anything? Anton shouted over the noise. Your sister still dies. No, she doesn't, Isabella called back. Because I've had backup this whole time. That's when the warehouse doors exploded inward. FBI agents poured through every entrance simultaneously, their tactical gear gleaming under the industrial lights. Leading them was a woman I didn't recognize, tall, Asian American, wearing a vest marked FBI in bold letters. Anton Volkov, you're under arrest, she shouted. Drop your weapons. But it was the man standing beside her that made my heart stop. Agent Martinez, very much alive and very much not the traitor Anton had claimed him to be. Martinez? Isabella emerged from behind the shipping container, her gun still trained on Anton. But how? Because everything Anton just told you was a lie, Martinez called out, as his agents surrounded the remaining Russians. Just like everything was a lie 3 years ago. Anton was backing toward his desk, his hand reaching for something in the drawer. This is impossible. I bought you, Martinez. I have records. You have records of buying someone pretending to be me. Martinez's voice was grim. "We've been running a counter-operation for 2 years, waiting for you to make exactly this kind of mistake. What are you talking about?" I shouted over the continuing alarm. The Asian American agent stepped forward. "Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. We've been tracking Mr. Volkov's attempts to locate and manipulate witnesses under our protection. When Isabella, whose real name is indeed Isabella Rodriguez, came to us 3 years ago, we realized we had an opportunity." Isabella looked stunned. "But the safe houses that were compromised on purpose," Agent Chen explained. "We fed Volkov false information through his contacts, making him think he was controlling your movements when actually we were controlling his." Anton had gone very still behind his desk. "The USB drive contains exactly what Isabella thought it contained," Martinez said. "Real evidence of your operations, recorded during that night in your office, but we let you think it was fake intelligence. Every narrow escape, every lucky break that kept Isabella alive wasn't luck at all," Agent Chen continued. "We were always 3 steps ahead, making sure she stayed safe while gathering evidence on your entire organization." I stared at Isabella. "Did you know?" She shook her head, lowering her weapon. "Not until 3 days ago. When Martinez went silent, it was because the operation was moving into its final phase. When I couldn't reach him, I was supposed to come to Miami and wait. But you came to the club instead," I realized. "Because I was scared and lonely and I just wanted one normal night before this all ended." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I never meant to involve you, Marcus. I never meant to fall in love." Anton laughed bitterly from behind his desk. "How touching. But you're all forgetting something important." He pressed a button on his desk, and the video feed of Carmen changed. Now we could see a man standing behind her chair, holding what looked like a detonator. "One phone call from me," Anton said, "and your sister becomes a very pretty memory." "Actually," Agent Chen said calmly, "your associate Victor has been in federal custody for the past 6 hours, along with everyone else in your organization." On cue, the video feed changed again. This time it showed Carmen being untied by FBI agents, very much alive and unharmed. Anton's face went white. "That's impossible. The beauty of a 3-year operation," Martinez said, "is that you have time to identify and flip everyone in the target's organization. Did you really think we'd let you run this game without knowing every move you were going to make?" I watched Anton Volkov, this man who had controlled and manipulated lives for years, who had terrorized the woman I loved and threatened my family, realize that he had never been in control at all. "There's just one thing I don't understand," Isabella said, walking closer to Anton's desk. "Why keep up the charade? Why not just arrest him years ago?" "Because he wasn't the real target," Agent Chen replied. "Anton Volkov is middle management. We needed him to lead us to his superiors in Moscow, to the people who've been using his operation to funnel money to terrorist organizations worldwide." "And did he?" Agent Chen smiled. "Every bank account, every contact, every meeting for the past 3 years. We've been recording everything through the surveillance devices you unknowingly carried in your personal effects." Isabella reached up and touched the small pendant she always wore, a gift, she'd told me, from Agent Martinez when she first entered protection. "Even the pendant? Especially the pendant." Anton made one last desperate play, lunging for the real USB drive on his desk, but Isabella was faster. She tackled him, and they went down in a tangle of expensive suits and warehouse grime. When the FBI agents pulled them apart, Isabella was holding the drive. "It's over, Anton," she said quietly. "Finally, it's over." As they led Anton away in handcuffs, he looked back at Isabella one last time. "This doesn't change what we had," he called out. "What we could still have." "We never had anything," Isabella replied, "because you never knew who I really was." The warehouse was quiet now except for the steady drip of the sprinkler system and the distant sound of sirens. Isabella and I stood there soaked and exhausted, watching as the last of Anton's men were processed and removed. "So what happens now?" I asked Agent Martinez. "Now Isabella gets to choose," he said. "The threat is eliminated. The organization is dismantled. She can go back to being Isabella Rodriguez if she wants to. And if she doesn't want to, then she can be anyone she wants to be." Isabella took my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. "I want to be someone who doesn't have to run anymore. Someone who can build a life with the person she loves, even if that person is just a nightclub manager from Miami." She smiled, the first genuine, completely unguarded smile I'd seen from her. "Especially if he's a nightclub manager who was brave enough to run into hell to save her." 6 months later, I was standing behind the bar of our new restaurant in Little Havana. Isabella, she'd decided to keep that name, said it felt more like her than the girl she'd been before, was in the kitchen, teaching our chef her grandmother's recipe for ropa vieja. The restaurant was busy, filled with the kind of warm chaos that comes from good food and people who are genuinely happy to be there. It wasn't the glamorous world of VIP nightclub service, but it was real. It was ours. "Marcus," Isabella called from the kitchen doorway. "Table 7 wants to know if you have any recommendations for after-dinner drinks." I looked over at table 7, a young couple on what was obviously a first date, both nervous and excited and trying to impress each other. "Tell them to try the 18-year-old single malt," I called back, "and tell them that sometimes the best things in life are worth the wait." Isabella laughed, understanding the reference immediately. "And sometimes the best things come when you least expect them." As the evening wound down and the last customers filtered out into the Miami night, Isabella and I stood together looking out the window at the city lights. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The excitement, the danger, the feeling that every day could be your last." I pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair. No longer expensive perfume, just simple shampoo and the smell of our kitchen. "Never," I said, "because every day with you feels like the first day of the rest of my life. If you've been with us through this entire journey, from that first night at Club Elysium to this moment of peace we've finally found, I want to know, from which corner of the world have you been listening to our story? Because love stories like this one prove that no matter where we are, no matter what darkness we're facing, there's always hope for a new beginning. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, that new beginning comes with the person we were meant to find all along.